Day YouTube. Today's topic is I am transitioning out of the military, out of the Air Force. I have 10 months and about a week. Yes, I know the exact time because I'm super excited. I think a lot of people who I interact with face to face, whether it's in my professional life at work or in my personal life in my community near my home, are surprised, but they can understand that I want to retire. They're surprised for various reasons. I think my wife was also. My family was at first, but when you know, you know. 2 weeks ago, I went through a course at Peterson Air Force Base called Transition Assistance Planning. I've made videos about TAP, Transition Assistance Program. For some reason, I always say planning when it's program. And I went as a student, whereas in the past, I would teach the financial planning of that course. It's a 5-day course. I took it at Peterson because I live in Colorado Springs, and I was home every night. My family, my wife and daughter at the time, were in Honduras, so it kind of helped because we have 5 pets. With my transition, I'm super excited. Like I said, when you know it's time to transition, to move on and do other things. I'm very lucky in the sense that I have my civilian job waiting for me, so I know exactly what I'm going to do as far as the location. I used to be a financial counselor at the Airmen and Family Readiness Center. Now, my certification expired. You probably already know that. It expired because I was on active duty, still am. And my boss is going to give me, my civilian boss, a different job. Whatever it is, I'm going to be excited to do it, and I'll be 7.5 miles from home to work, be home every night. Here's what I learned as a student in Transition Assistance Program, TAP. A lot of it I already knew. Networking is key. If you forget everything that I say in this video, which is not going to be too long overall, remember that networking, your network out there, can get you the next job. As you transition and leave the service, everybody who joins the service will definitely leave the military in one way or the other. What do you want to do next? Some of you will go to school, some of you are going to go to work. The best thing that you can do is, do you know what you want to do? Do you want to do the same job that you do or similar in the military and the civilian side? For me, it's human resources, so obviously the answer is yes. Many people will say, no, I want to do something completely different. Some of you are going to go back to school. Your network is very important. I've broken down TAP into 5 days because it's a 5-day class. Here are my notes, very brief. Again, networking is number one. In my class, there are people that sounded excited, some people that were nervous, some people that didn't say much. So there's a lot of variety as far as emotions and feelings for that next chapter in our lives. I'm excited. However, after leaving TAP, I would say I'm 10 times more excited because of what I've learned, and I'll share that with you in just a moment. First day in the afternoon, after the introductions and telling us what we were going to learn, was the financial planning portion. Again, I used to teach that class, so I was very curious as to what's changed in 2 years since I used to do it. Not much. In fact, there's only 2 slides that were different. Everything else was the same. I could have done that same brief. Financial planning is very important with your transition. Either you can have a smooth move or you can be stressed, and I don't like stress. It's part of life. I do have stress. Everybody does to some capacity, but I like to prepare. That's what I've learned in my age. Day 2 was resume review. I have a resume. It's not a standard civilian resume, it's a federal resume, which is completely different. And the website that we use is usajobs.gov. It's very different, but I learned a lot in the sense that I can make my resume a lot stronger. What are my plans for my job? June 1st of 2018, I will be back at Airmen and Family Readiness Center, back as a federal employee. And I know that I'm going to be a federal employee. As of today, my plan is 11 years and then retire at the age of 57. Retire from the workforce. If I want to continue afterwards, I'll do that. But the plan is to be financially prepared. So when I'm 57, if I want to continue, it's because I want to. I'll have 2 pensions by there. Air Force Reserve pension at 56 years, 9 months, Air Force Civil Service at 57. My resume, what do I want to do next with my job? That's a great question that I ask myself every single week. Here's the answer. I'm going to go back to my job and I'm going to look. I'm a GS 11, which is the pay chart, pay grade that I get paid. I'd like to look for a GS 12 and move up. I've never been promoted as a civilian, but here's the key. I have to have a job that I'm going to enjoy. I don't want to go up to a GS 12 and be miserable and get more money. If that's the case, I'm not going to do that. I'll stay as a GS 11 where I love my job. My option is I can go to Europe for 3 to 5 years if my wife and I agree, or I can look for another job, federal job, here in Colorado Springs, or maybe in another state if we want to, and relocate. Regardless, my resume, I realize, needs to be worked on, and it has to have an impact, just like it does in the military. There is an acronym that's used according to what I learned. It's called STAR, Situation, Task, Action, Result. What do we do with our job? Whether it's military or civilian, what's the situation, what's the task that we're doing, what's the action, and what's the result. That's covered in TAP. That is very good. There are 3 jobs that you can get if you're going outside of the military that I can think of that they shared with us. And that is, you can be a contractor, you can work for the federal government, again, as a civilian, or you can go into the private sector. And all of them are good options, but the question is, what's the best option for you? For me, a contractor is not something I really like, the idea. I like stability. Sometimes they say contractors earn more than federal employees, and that's okay. However, because of my stories in my life and my experiences, I've always believed for the last 11 years, it's not how much you earn, it's what you do with what you earn. So I like the federal employment option since I'm already in it. I have a lot of years doing that. Day 3 was training and education. And we as service members, whether you've been in 4 years or 20 plus years, have a lot of training and education. Ensure that you know what you've done, when you did it, and relate that into your experience and resume as well for your next job. Here's something that, going back to that network thing, that I'm going to throw a curveball. I've heard of LinkedIn. I don't have a LinkedIn account. People often ask me, hey, are you on LinkedIn? I can't find you. I'm not on LinkedIn. Here's the reason why. I went, and they do talk about LinkedIn in TAP. I went with an open mind saying, what can I learn about LinkedIn, and see if it makes me change my mind about opening up an account. LinkedIn is a social network, professional website. I've never had an account. I don't have anything against LinkedIn, but after learning what it's about, it's kind of like putting all of your accomplishments and experiences and your education online so your network can see it. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. However, for me, it's not something I'm going to pursue, and that is because I'm lucky enough that I have my federal job that I'll be going back to, and I feel that if I see a job that I want to apply, as long as my resume is good, I'm going to submit my application through my resume and hope that that gets me an interview. Once I get an interview, it's up to me to make or break that interview and get hired for that job. The way I've always seen it is, if you give me an interview, it's that job for me to lose. In other words, I have to interview well, which we cover interviewing in TAP, and at the same time I have to do research on that next position as to what do I offer for that organization or for that location or for that team. So for me, LinkedIn is not something that you're going to find me on, because I'm not going to create an account. It's just too much work, and it's not something I'm interested in. Day 4 covered a lot of websites: opm.gov, mynextmove.org, salary.com. A lot of great websites and tools. If you are stressed for your transition, use the tools available. I'm going to share with you 2 books that they gave us. Day 5 is survivor's benefits for active duty, which I'm active duty, but I don't have a active duty retirement, so I skipped that. It was about an hour, and I showed up at 8 in the morning. However, the good news for reservists like myself and Guard members, is that if you're married and something were to happen within that gray window, when I retire at the age of 46 to 56, if I were to die, my wife gets my retirement immediately. If I survive, which I hope to, I'll pay just a little bit higher rate with survivor's benefits. Of course, have your base explain that to you. That's just the abbreviated portion. Day 5 also included the VA, who came in and talked about benefits and education and types of GI Bills. There's 2 more websites, va.gov and vets.gov. Very helpful. They also talked about estate planning, having your paperwork in order should something happen to us, life insurance, housing, VA healthcare, things like that. Also, how to submit your VA claim for disability compensation should you be eligible for something like that. TAP is a great tool. It was a lot of information. We had to interview, mock interviews, things like that. I like interviewing for real jobs, not play. I'd rather do that on my own, in my mind, or in my car as I drive. Think of it as a 30-second commercial, and then it becomes a conversation. I think I have a strength for interviewing. I didn't really want to do it in class, but I did it. It's still fun. It's something that, the way I see it is growth. Can I learn something? And often I do. That class is definitely mandatory. It's mandated across the board regardless of branch, but it's good information. Here are 2 books that they shared with us. U.S. Department of Labor Employment Workshop. We get to keep it. A lot of information. Resumes, how to write bullets for your resumes. One thing that's very important, and websites as well, is if you're going into the civilian sector, make sure it's in English. Acronyms have to go out the door because they're not going to understand that, so make it in English. Next is the VA benefits briefing. It looks just like this. A lot of notes. I'm always trying to learn something. Points of contact, if you have questions. It's all covered. It's a lot of good information. Your transition from the military will come whenever that is, whether it's sooner or rather than later. Make the most of it, ask questions, network, prepare accordingly with your resume, with your finances, with your spouse, with the location that you think you want to go to. Do the research, prepare. There's a term that I've used, or we used at Airmen and Family Readiness, it's called a smooth move briefing. I'll probably be in charge of that program. I've done it before. Do you want to have a smooth move, or do you want to be stressed with your transition out of the military? Hopefully this has been helpful. And I have some ideas I'm not going to share with you on where this channel is going in the near future. I'm super excited. It's probably going to go in a different direction from Air Force, because there's only so many things that I can talk about. Finances is always going to be a part of that. Air Force will always be a part of it. But it's going to be more practical in the sense that if you want information on life in general, something that I have to live by example, that's where I'm going. Have a great day. Take care.